right, we're good to go.
Stopped. It said stopped, not started. Are you sure it's going?
We just need the recording, Cassandra. Yep. I think we're all set.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Allison McKenzie, and I am the chair of the Historic Conservation Board. I would like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of this proceeding. This proceeding is at all times governed by the rules of procedure adopted by the board on September 26, 2011, amended March 23, 2015, last amended March 9, 2020. A copy of the rules of procedure is available for review online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments such as attorneys, should stand and take an oath administered by the board's attorney. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio Rules of Evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law. Any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, retaliation, which may include contacting their employer in an attempt to exert influence, is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please speak clearly into your microphone and state your name and address for the record. In the event of any technical difficulties with the video conferencing technology, I may continue or postpone this hearing at my discretion. All participants providing testimony must have both camera and audio features turned on in order to participate. With that said, let's proceed with the first item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 1 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness for 100 East Central Parkway and the Over the Rhine Historic District. This is the Emory building right along Central Parkway. And the applicant is proposing to install a new canopy over the theater entrance along Walnut Street on the northwest corner of the building. That is the main entrance to what will be the Children's Theater of Cincinnati. And the applicant is proposing to place the canopy in the approximate same location as the historic canopy that formerly existed on the site. So the canopy, share my screen here, is over the main entrance doors at the Walnut Street entrance to the theater. It will be a contemporary style, but will still be compatible with the building. And you can see on the rendering here, it will be fabricated through metal with round light fixtures with LED lighting underneath to provide the lighting at the entrance level. The rendering does show the chain that formerly held the previous canopy, but because those chains are over 100 years old, they will not be reutilized, and there will be a cable, steel cable system that will support that canopy. I did find a couple historic photos showing the original canopy locations. This is a photo from the 1990s showing that original canopy still in place. So you can see it matches fairly closely the dimensions of the proposed canopy that will be going on the site. So staff does feel that the proposed canopy does meet the Over the Rhine conservation guidelines. It is a contemporary but compatible replacement that will differentiate from the historic. And with that, staff does recommend approval of the certificate of appropriateness for 100 East Central Parkway, including any revisions submitted for permit, subject to staff review and approval with the following condition: that the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date, or the COA shall expire.
We do have several applicants and owners associated with this project signed up. Would any of you like to add to what has been presented by staff? If so, let's get you sworn in to testify.
I do not have any additional information to add.
Okay. questions or comments from the board for the applicants or staff at this time? I believe everyone signed up was either with the applicant or the owner of the building. If there is anyone else who signed up who would like to speak at this time, please let me know. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion from the board.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff.
Second,
Thank you. I will call the roll. Ms. Smith,
yes.
Mr. Zalesko,
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Looks like your item passes. Congratulations. We'll go on to item number 2.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for 2018 Freeman Avenue in the Dayton Street Historic District. The applicant is proposing an addition on the building, which includes a ground floor 2-car garage, as well as a separate apartment unit on the 2nd story above the garage. It will be added onto the existing vacant lot to the west of the current building. And let me share my screen. You can see on the right side, this is the existing configuration with the single building located on the one side. This lot was recently consolidated with the lot adjoining it, and that will be where the proposed addition is placed. Along with the certificate of appropriateness, the applicant also requires zoning relief because it does not meet the setback requirements for the garage. There is a dimensional variance of 22 feet for a proposed 3-foot rear yard setback, short of the 25-foot required rear setback. And also there will be a special exception required for the front yard setback, as in this commercial district, buildings are required to be built to the front lot line, and the applicant is proposing an 18-foot front yard setback. So that zoning relief is included in the request with the certificate of appropriateness. So the proposal is for the 2-story addition. The front elevation will be clad in a brick cladding material. 2 single-car garage entries will be located on the ground floor, as well as 1 pedestrian door. And the 2nd level will have the residential windows for the apartment unit that will be created above the garage. So staff does have some concerns with the proposal as it is currently laid out, primarily relating to its height, setback, and the location of the vehicular entry. So the Dayton Street Conservation Guidelines state that vehicular entries shall not be placed on a primary facade. So because this lot is has only 1 street frontage along Freeman Avenue, the only possible place to have a vehicular entry would be coming from Freeman Avenue. Staff had recommended the applicant reach out to the neighboring mosque behind the property to see if it was possible to gain an easement to access the property from the rear so that this configuration could better meet the guidelines. I received a letter after the staff report was finalized stating that those conversations did occur and they were ultimately unable to reach an agreement for the easement. So that was not a possibility. So the applicant has proceeded with the current proposal with the vehicular entry off the front. In addition to the concerns about this from the front access, staff does have concerns with the setback being so far from the front street. It creates a large gap, and while that gap in the streetscape currently does exist, it will be more or less permanently solidified once the addition is built with that 18-foot setback, which basically the depth of that setback means that when you're viewing the streetscape from any angle up or down the street, that addition will not be visible, so it will appear as a vacant lot still when viewed from that angle. That setback also creates a large concrete pad in the front of the building. And when connected to the concrete walkway to access the pedestrian door, the result is a very large concrete area that is 25 feet wide along the front of that building. So as pedestrians are walking down the street, that will not be a soft transition to the building. So, and then finally, the other primary concern is regarding the height. And you can see on the section view, while I don't have a full elevation with the adjacent building next to it, the section view does show the proposed height of the addition in comparison to the main building. So while the main building is 3 stories tall and the addition is proposed to be 2 stories, there is an offset because the existing building has a substantial raised foundation that is about 4.5 feet tall. So that further contributes to the differentiation between the height of the addition when compared to the height of the main building. So in staff's opinion, that does create the jagged effect in height along the streetscape that the guidelines state they're trying to avoid. So it should be mentioned that historically there was a carriage house located on this lot. In the 1890 Sanborn, it does show up as a 1-story carriage house. And then in the 1930 corrected Sanborn, it shows another carriage house that was slightly larger. I'm not entirely sure if it's the same carriage house that was expanded or a new structure. That structure was demolished in 2004. You can see on the screen that is the condition of that structure when it was demolished. So while there is some precedent for having a garage structure on this lot, staff does still have concerns with the setbacks as well as the height for the new construction. The applicant also points to a previous garage that was permitted on the 1900 block of Bay Miller a couple of years ago. That is at 1905 Bay Miller. But that lot was found to have special circumstances. The 1900 block at Bay Miller is very different from this block of Freeman Avenue, where most of the buildings have front yard setbacks, and they are very highly varied, closer to the street and further away. Also larger side yard setbacks, and the buildings in general themselves are a lower height than this block of Freeman Avenue. Additionally, on the Bay Miller property, there was an intact brick alley on the rear with a stone retaining wall that would have had to have been altered and partially removed in order to access the rear of that property to avoid the front-facing garage. And ultimately, that was deemed to be acceptable by the board because of the specific conditions of that block and the location of the retaining wall and the brick alley. So that being said, staff does recommend that the dimensional variance of 22 feet for the rear yard setback be denied. Staff also recommends denial of the special exception for the 18-foot front yard setback. And staff does recommend denial of the certificate of appropriateness for the 2-story garage addition. And then I also failed to mention there is a proposal for a rear deck on this on the main building, historic building that is currently there. And there is also a proposal for an inset roof deck on the rear roof slope of that building. Neither of those decks will be highly visible from the front facade, so that staff does feel that they are appropriate and meet the guidelines. So staff does recommend approval of the certificate of appropriateness for the renovations to the existing building, excluding the garage addition, and including new windows, the rear inset roof deck, and the rear wood deck with the following conditions. That one, the specific window series shall be reviewed and approved by staff prior to the issuance of building permits. And that two, the wood deck shall be painted or stained after construction.
We do have an architect and 2 owner applicants signed up. Is there anything that any of you would like to add to what has been presented by staff? If so, let's get you sworn in before you testify.
So if you could, everybody unmute for me that intends on testifying. I think I have Vaughn Saldana, Nicole Saldana, and Charles Alexander. If you could all unmute.
Yeah.
And raise your right hand.
I don't believe, oh, never mind.
Well, Mr. Alexander, let's start with you. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. What would you like to tell us?
Well, I wanted Vaughn to go first, but I'm not sure where he's at.
I believe Vaughn is here. If you could unmute. Mr. Saldana, could you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right,
What would
go
you
ahead.
like to tell us?
Okay, so just a few things. I know that special permissions were granted for Bay Miller. I just would like to say down there that no buildings are all the same. They are all different heights. They are all different sizes. Some are large, some are big, some are small. And I originally purchased this property on Freeman because I did see that property on Bay Miller, and I really wanted to try to replicate what they had already done. I did not 100% take into consideration the historic board, but I generally thought that, hey, if they were able to do it, I should be able to do it as well. As also the setback that I am asking for is 15 feet. That is a car's length. And I also put in my letter concerning safety factors, and also most commercial garages are set at the front of the street as well. There is a plethora of graffiti. I have video cameras all on my property as of right now. I'm just seeing graffiti and stuff like that. And it's just like a crime of opportunity. If someone is walking down the street and there is just a door just right there, I just see them all the time on my camera, just go by and do something. I feel that the offset of this garage will make people have to enter private property to commit those particular crimes. I am very vested in this neighborhood. I love the neighborhood. I am trying to make a nice piece of property in line with historic. I understand all of that. I have dealt with historic before on Lincoln Avenue, the Walnut Woods area. I own 2 buildings there that I have gone through historical with. So I'm very in tune with historical and wanting to conform. But I understand in this particular area, there's no cookie cutter situation, and appropriateness should vary between all the different properties, not just the way that I don't know my words there, but I just feel like, well, that's it. That's all I have to say at this particular point.
Well, one of the point to add to what Vaughn is just saying is that this is one residential building and a series of commercial buildings along that block. It's the only residential building, in fact, in that particular block. And when you go to the next block going towards Dayton, you have all commercial buildings. So he is in a very odd location when it comes to having a residential building. I think you need to take that in account. The other option is if we move the garage to the front to replace that issue that Doug is expressing in terms of zero line setback, we could do that, but again, it creates a situation that Vaughn was talking about. People are just they're right. It's right there at folks. Plus, when you're driving in, you've got to block traffic in the street until you actually make that turn to get into the garage. The way it's set back now, you don't have to block traffic, you just go off the street and then into the garage. So there's a couple of things that one you could consider when you look at this in terms of the setbacks.
You, Ms. Saldana, did you want to speak as well? You're muted if you're trying to say something.
I will defer to Mr. Alexander on the code, but I don't know if anyone has been into that area recently.
Sworn in, if you'd like to add anything.
Need you to raise your right hand. Need you to raise your right hand, Ms. Saldana. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Sure, yes, I do. Forgot where I was. So what I was saying is that I don't know whether anyone has been down to that area recently. But to me, it is, I think we are kind of overlooking sort of just like the elephant in the room is that it's a highly blighted area in which someone is willing to come in and invest their time and money into. And, my husband's done this many times before, and he definitely, he goes over and above, I don't know, and keeping in tune with the historical aspects of buildings. He painstakingly takes, the wood out and strips it and puts it back in and does all type of things to make sure that it's consistent with its historical integrity. But in this case, in which we are trying to, probably be one of the first people on the block to kind of renovate this area, I think an exception is warranted, whereas it's always a first. There's always a first one that has to come and put their time and money into these neighborhoods to make them livable again. And to put these kind of exceptions and these kind of restrictions on is really not doing what the city wants to do as far as to encourage this type of development. This is not a big developer coming in. He's a single person that kind of puts his own sweat equity in to do these projects, and coming out of our own pocket on a lot of this, and to make it work financially for us, and actually doing something for the community that we both grew up in and love. And he intentionally does buildings in these blighted areas and makes them better all the time. So I understand that there are certain height restrictions and all of that, but what was the purpose of them? What was the purpose of these restrictions? In my opinion, the purpose is long gone, because if you looked in it, if anyone's went down that area recently, you wouldn't even walk down there. You wouldn't even want to drive down there with your own window down. So, I don't know what you're trying to preserve, because it's awful. There's a commercial building right at the street. What is that building at the corner, hon? The one that they were just painting it a beautiful like sage green. They didn't get halfway up the building before somebody came and tagged it. I mean, if you drive by there, you will see this. This is why having a garage right there at the sidewalk is nonsensical. It does, that looked ugly. I mean, the building that you just showed there that they had there, that was demolished, I believe, in, would you say 2020 or something like that, 2024, I don't remember. But that was an eyesore. I mean, we could beautify this place. That was an eyesore. And I could see someone, it's very easily taggable the way they had it. So why would someone want to have their own home, which you're going to call your home? This is not a commercial property. This is going to be someone's home, residential home right there, and make it easily accessible for someone to come and tag. That just makes no sense at all. I'm sorry, that's it.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the board for either the applicants or staff?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Owen. Historically, this was a carriage house, did you say?
Correct.
And the sighting, do you have any understanding of the sighting of that carriage house? Was it, clearly the thing that was torn down was right at the sidewalk. Do we have any understanding of where the carriage house originally was situated on that property relative to the street and then back to the backyard?
Yeah, the 1890 Sanborn, I apologize that I didn't include an image of that in the staff report, but it did show the carriage house built to that front lot line as well.
Yes, about the rear, Doug.
Sorry,
Yes, about the rear. The rear.
the rear. I don't remember off the top of my head how deep that building was. I can try to find that Sanborn quickly.
Well, I want to say originally, I believe that lot was 100 feet by 25 feet wide, which is almost standard for many lots down there, 25 by 100. At some particular point, the mosque or the school or something behind there took half of the 100-foot. And now that lot is 25 by 40 by 47. And there was never an alley or anything back there. So generally speaking, down there, the carriage houses are off of alleys, and that just could not have been the case. Even in the 1890s, there was no alley street going through there. I look at Sanborn as well, and I haven't found the 1891, but
Mr.
I
Zelinski.
do appreciate there's sometimes all these rules and regulations seem, they don't always make a lot of sense, but
Well, and what's the intent behind it? I mean,
it depends on the direction you're looking from it. I get, my question is, and I am familiar with the area. Worked with both of the school owners for a number of years when those are in the process of being developing, and spent some time in the neighborhood with the community and club groups. And so I guess my question to the owners is, if the board would only approve it with the garage at the lot line, would that be acceptable to you?
no.
it is not optimal. I'm not sure if you have pictures on my drawings there.
I
but
know
I
it's
am-
not optimal, but would you approve it if that was the only way?
I would have to redo my whole Charles would have to try to redo everything, because for me, I am also looking for safety for the occupancy, people who live there. And I wanted a situation where they could pull into their garage and walk into their house without having to come out of the front of the garage, go on the sidewalk, and then walk up the stoop into the property. So I'm looking at safety. I'm looking at and as well as convenience. And
Well, I don't want to get into all the possibilities, but that could be resolved with a remote garage door opener. I'm kind of adverse to providing that deepest setback. There's another way to look at it. With those pockets, that creates an opportunity for menacing, because now you've created blind spots. So probably that's a whole conversation someplace, but I think maintaining the fabric of the neighborhood is probably paramount for the most part. I assume that's in large part why Mr. Owen made the decision he did. I
But
tend to agree with him.
you know,
Fine,
the fact
Fine. Comment. Bob, your question is, can it be done? It can be done. It's just like Vaughn is saying, we just have to redesign the floor plans to make sure that we can get that access that he needs. It's going to take some effort, but worst case scenario, it can happen.
it could happen. I just hate to see my building tagged up. When it's all said and done, if you guys approve that frontage there and my garage doors are damaged or graffiti, you know, it's just over, you know, it's just over. It's nothing anyone can do about it. It is what it is.
Well, the tagging is an ongoing issue down there for all the buildings. So
So we need to
I
make it
don't know that
less
yours,
easy for them to be able, less easy for their able to be an opportunity of crime. I mean,
Let's
May
go
I-
back. We've
may I
got some-
speak?
Hang on. Time out. This is us asking questions and response. So let's be a little cognizant of the rules of order here. Mr. Sunderman.
Thank you,
I,
everybody.
I don't quite understand how the setback is going to alleviate tagging and graffiti. As Bob mentioned, you do have that setback and people do tend to congregate in those kinds of places. I'm sure you can put a door between the garage and the house somewhere. I guess I don't get the tagging thing. I understand it's a problem. I know it's a problem, but I don't see how pushing that back 6 feet or whatever it is going to
15.
alleviate that problem.
well, it's 15 feet and you would have to go onto private property. So you would really have to be making assertive effort to go 15 feet back to tag a garage, and no one's going to do that. But if you're on the sidewalk, i.e. the building that just got tagged on the corner of Freeman and Dayton, that's a sidewalk job. You know, that is not you entering private property to go do something like that. And all of the garages, if you guys have been down there, all the commercial garages, all the garages on the 1800 block of Freeman, they have all been vandalized, or they have an ugly metal gate on them, and this, that, and the other. And that's not keeping with historical either, where you have to fence up everything and lock up everything. And that's and listen, I'm just trying to strike a balance here between safety, between common sense, which always doesn't always go with, you know, rules and regulations, and, you know, trying to make this neighborhood viable again with beautiful properties that people want to spend money on to live there, even with all of the issues that are going down there. But I feel like we have to make people safe. You know, no one wants to park their car on the street. There's a bullet-ridden car right at Freeman right now. A young lady, 37 years old, was shot in her car. There's balloons on her car. It's been up there for a month.
And may I say something about the setback? Because I'm not a big, like, architect or anything, but my understanding is that, like, when it's set back, you can have better, I mean, you can't have alarms and security cameras on the public street, like the alarms that go off. But once you get on the private property, you know, it's easy to say, hey, this is property, you know, you have the ring and all of that, where, you know, you can't really say that if someone's just walking past because it's on the sidewalk, but you can say that if they enter into and try to get to the garage door, which if it's set back.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm in agreement with Bob. I understand what you're trying to do with the setback. I think the setback, beyond being outside the guidelines, creates as much of a attractive nuisance and an invitation for people to be able to do things out of sight of the streetscape as it, you know, if entering private property by walking on a driveway was going to impede people from breaking the law who are predisposed to break the law, I would be okay. But I don't accept the argument that that setback actually benefits you. You know, if the setback were a foot to allow for your cameras, okay, but I don't, that part of your argument for me doesn't carry weight, because I think the benefit of somebody having to walk 15 feet back to tag is offset by the fact that no one's going to see them walking back to tag.
I think the other
Okay,
concern-
okay. Well, then I will have to defer to 1905 Bay Miller then. They have the setback. They have another house butted up against their house as well. So the argument about, you know, the blind spots or people can't do that, I am trying to replicate 1905 Bay Miller. They had special circumstances with the retaining wall and some kind of things that were overcome for various reasons that the board, you know, approved. I have certain issues as well. No certain property has the same issues down there. They're all particularly different. So
I think that your argument is maybe not as beneficial as you think that it might be, in that we also have to be careful about what precedent we are setting with decisions that we make. And so when things do not fall into the same exact special exceptions, we do have to consider, is that something that we want to allow going forward? Because every single person who comes back in here will do the same thing and say, well, you allowed it here and they have the same circumstances we do. So it's a very sensitive balance that the board has to weigh when we take these cases under consideration.
yes,
I'd like to-
I certainly understand that. And I the same way as I'm trying to replicate 1905 Bay Miller, I would hope someone would try to replicate exactly what I'm going to do there, because what I am going to do there is extremely what I propose to do there is extremely beneficial, not only to the neighborhood, but to the people, the occupants that will eventually be there as well. So I hope someone would copy what I do.
I think where I'm at is, and one, I'm very appreciative of your folks' interest in that community. I really am. I do have some history with the folks down there. What I would like to do is, if you're open to it, for me, the building's going to have to comply with the setbacks. To do that, what I'd propose, or what I'd like to make a motion on, is that we table the meeting and the owners come back with a solution that provides for that. If that's acceptable to you guys.
Charles?
If we,
Are you
like,
asking us, Bob, or are you saying your members of your committee?
I'm saying, if you would like the opportunity to come back with a solution that doesn't require the setback on the garage, I'm open to providing a motion that allows you to do that.
To the chair, if I may just try and help set the stage a little bit, so everything's clear for the applicants and the owners on this. Member Zelasco is suggesting that instead of voting this up or down today, that we give you all a chance to redesign the project based on some of the feedback you've heard here today, and then bring it back in front of the board for an approval at that point. If you don't want to go that option, you can ask the board to vote on the project as is today. I think they've given you a pretty good indication of how that vote would go. And then you can always appeal their decision to the Zoning Board of Appeals and ask the Zoning Board of Appeals to approve your design as is. So hopefully that's clear, but I think those are sort of the options that Mr. Zelasco is trying to present right now. So if you have no intention of trying to change the design and you'd like to try your luck with the Zoning Board of Appeals, then there'd be no need to table it today. But if you think you could redesign it and tailor a little bit more to some of the considerations you've heard from the board here today, then tabling it would be a better option for you.
Thank you, David.
can
Sure.
you tell us how, like, would it be a month before before the board again, or how long would that, when can we be before the board again if we would decide to retable?
So it's generally whenever you tell us you're ready to come back, and generally it takes us about 2 weeks to get you back onto the docket.
Okay.
But it all depends on how long it takes you guys to bring the new plans.
Right. Can we just have 2 minutes? Is that
Certainly.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair McKenzie, for rallying everybody back into order. I really appreciate that.
Trying.
Herding cats.
And Madam Chair, I do have the Sanborns, if anybody would like to see that before, once we come back, I can pull that up.
I would appreciate that.
Do you want me to put those up now?
Sure.
I think we should try to limit any substantive discussion though, until we have the applicant and owner back.
Got it.
Looks like we have Mr. Saldana back with us. Are we ready to resume?
Yes.
Okay. We did just have, Mr. Owen said he did find the Sanborn map, so that's what you're looking at here. But we are ready for your decision whenever you are ready to give it to us.
Well, we wish to table the issue and go back to the drawing board.
Okay. With that being said, is there a motion from the board?
I'll move that we table this project for 2 weeks.
Second.
I will call the roll. Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Zalasko,
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Mr. Voss,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. So yeah, just work with staff. When you have plans that are revised, we'll get you back on the agenda.
Thank you.
Hey, Tim,
For question, please.
Yes.
Do we get a transcript of this or a copy of the recording?
Yep, I can share a link with you that will have the recording, and
Okay.
we can also put you in touch with the court reporter who's here today.
Recording will be fine. That should be
Okay.
right. That's fine. All
Great.
right. All right,
Sure.
thank you.
hey, Tim, FYI, that sandboard map, Heberly was built in 33. So
Okay.
that sandboard map actually predates the school that's there now.
Got it.
If you didn't
It
catch it.
used to be a brewery, correct?
I think it was for a little while.
Okay. Do we have any other business for the board today?
I do not.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.